1968, and it is by Jan van Eyck, and it is one of the most beautiful pieces, I think, in our set. And it is also a piece that creates more questions than it provides answers, some experts say. The context for it is that this is our our second Northern Renaissance piece, and it is a piece that Arnolfini, the man here standing with his wife, presumably, was able to create because he was a wealthy merchant. He was a cloth merchant and was associated with banking with the Medici family in Italy. And he was able to create this because he had money. And so this is what we call a double portrait. It's both he and his wife, we think, in this piece. So based on money is the context for this. And then the broader context is that you can see here, this is the Netherlands where this was painted. And although this is Dorstad, the city of Dorstad, this shows all of the trade routes that were connected here to the Netherlands. This is even before Europeans got into boats and went to the Americas and to Asia. So a lot of trade happening in the Middle Ages at the point here of the Netherlands. So lots and lots of money in play for artists to vie for with portrait making. So the function of this, we've already kind of alluded that this is a portrait, but a portrait about what is really the question. So it's always been assumed that this was the Arnolfini wedding portrait, but that question has kind of come up in discussion, and there is some doubt about that, but it is still on the table that this might be a wedding portrait. And weddings were a bit different in the early 1400s here. A person could claim that they were married, and if they went to communion together the next morning, or next day, whenever, that act alone could sanctify a marriage. So are they getting married here? That's a question. Or is he consenting for her to run his business while he is away merchanting? That's also been a viable option. Or are they standing in their living room area greeting people? Is that also an option? His hand is up. Mr. Arnolfini's hand is up. So is that what that means? So some clues to this piece are, well, there's a dog in this piece, and a dog, the word fido, comes from Latin meaning trust. So is that dog talking about trust? Is it talking about a contract where she could handle his business while he's away? Or they're holding hands, and he has one hand up, I mentioned, swearing an oath. And then there is one candle up here. There aren't multiple candles, just one candle signifying the presence of God. So do all of these signs indicate marriage? There was some thought that this might be his second wife, Giovanni's second wife. That's less popular. At any rate, again, could this be a marriage between two wealthy merchant families? That's a possibility. So the function's up in the air. In terms of form, there is incredible attention to detail, just like the Merode altarpiece that we just looked at. The detail in the Northern Renaissance is one of the characteristics. And then also a lack of interest in perspective. There is less interest in perspective as there is, say, in the School of Athens or in the Last Supper. But instead, there is more interest in form in the use of oil. And in the Italian Renaissance, there was more use of tempera. But here there's oil, and Jan van Eyck would have made layers and layers on this painting, all in the pursuit of getting rich color and to create more interest. So here is what we see. We see texture in the dog's coat. We see texture. Look at the ruffles of her dress, the fur, the ermine fur around her arm, the lace in her hair, the brass in this light or candle fixture, all of these textures are created with the use of oil paint. And then there is this creation of light in this piece that is phenomenal. It's one of its famous attributions is, or attributes, excuse me, the light coming in from this window. Do you see the shadow here created by this wooden window treatment? And then look at the shadow behind her on the bed. That is a reflection of all this incredible light coming into the room. Oh, also on the light fixture, you can see how right here it's much more shiny than it is over here. This treatment of light with oil paints is amazing. Content then, after form, content. The couple here are standing in a room that looks like a living room, yet there's a bed there. And this tells us that beds were just super expensive. And if you had one, you might as well show it off. Even though guests are being greeted in here, they need to see how wealthy this couple is. She has this fur trimmed coat, and so does he. And so that shows significant wealth. Now, they're definitely wealthy in the merchant class, but they're not wealthy in the noble class, and that would have required lots of jewelry. There are oranges on the windowsill, and the light is hitting these oranges, but oranges do not grow in the Netherlands, and so these would have been imported, thus showing again the wealth of this couple. And then finally, look at the light shining on this expensive brass light fixture, candle fixture. Continuing on with wealth, she looks, Mrs. Arnolfini does, like she has is pregnant. But the truth is she's got yards and yards of fabric that she's holding up in front of her by her stomach. This would infer that she's going to have some servant helping her navigate the streets with all of this very expensive fabric, another sign of her wealth. And then we have this carpet, presumably a Persian carpet, showing how wealthy they are that they're using imported goods. And then look at the hair here. This would have been on his coat. Just the ability to show these different textures is what's happening in this piece. More content here that makes this interesting is that on the back wall, the artist signed the piece saying, Johan van Eyck was here. And this could be the sign that he witnessed something, a contract, maybe a marriage contract. But, or in addition to that, if you look in the mirror, which again is another example of oil painting at its finest, it is a convex, this curved mirror that's showing us another view of the room. And in the mirror, there are two people who have walked in the door of this room. And so we're seeing that and wondering what their purpose is. Is it the artist wanting to put himself, a self-portrait in this piece? It's going to be mimicked, by the way, later on in another piece of art. And then you see the prayer beads here, the glass prayer beads, again, another example of light shining. And to also be noted here underneath that signature and around the mirror, these are little roundels that show the scenes of Christ's passion, his death and resurrection. They would have been like a half-inch wide, like probably as wide as your fingernail. So that is Jan van Eyck, the Arnolfini portrait.